Captain Ryan Bennett stood at the viewport of the Earth Alliance ship Relentless, watching the stars glide past as they approached Caldor Prime. The massive blue-green planet grew larger by the minute, surrounded by thousands of twinkling lights, the orbiting fleet of the Caldorian Stellar Dominion. "Quite a show of force," said Lieutenant Susan Miller, who stood beside him. Her eyes reflected the distant sparkle of Caldorian warships. "They want to impress us," Ryan replied. He straightened his uniform jacket. "And I'll admit it's working." The Relentless was humanity's finest vessel, the flagship of Earth's small but capable fleet. Inside its sleek hull, 40 crew members prepared for the first official diplomatic meeting between humans and the Caldorians. 6 weeks ago, a Caldorian scout ship had discovered a human mining operation on an asteroid near the edge of Sol system. Instead of hostility, they had extended an invitation. The vast alien empire wanted to meet their new neighbors. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," called out Navigation Officer Frank Cooper from his station. "They're directing us to the diplomatic bay of their command station." Ryan nodded. "Take us in nice and steady." As the Relentless approached the massive space station hanging above Caldor Prime, Ryan couldn't help but feel small. The station alone was bigger than anything humans had built in space, stretching nearly 10 miles across. The Caldorian vessels surrounding it made Earth's entire fleet look like toys. "Receiving transmission from Caldorian High Command," said Communications Officer Grace Palmer. "They welcome us to Caldor Prime and request that you and the diplomatic team prepare for shuttle transfer." Ryan turned to the woman standing quietly at the back of the bridge. Admiral Patricia Wells had said little during their journey, but her presence commanded respect. At 62, she was Earth's highest-ranking naval officer and leader of the diplomatic mission. "Admiral, it seems we're expected," Ryan said. Patricia nodded. "Let's not keep them waiting." Her voice was calm, but Ryan could see the tension in her shoulders. This meeting would shape humanity's future among the stars. The shuttle ride to the station was brief. Ryan, Patricia, and 3 diplomatic specialists gazed out at the Caldorian warships as they passed. Each vessel was at least 3 times the size of the Relentless.
47 combat ships, Patricia said quietly. "That's all we have. They must have thousands." "Quality over quantity, Admiral," said Ambassador Daniel Carter with forced cheerfulness. Patricia's expression didn't change. "Let's hope they see
it that way." The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. When the doors slid open, they were greeted by tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms and large oval eyes. The Caldorians wore ornate uniforms covered in what looked like military badges and ribbons. "Welcome to Caldor Command Station," said the tallest Caldorian in slightly accented English. "I am High Commander Zex Tool, military leader of the Caldorian Stellar Dominion." Patricia stepped forward. "Admiral Patricia Wells of the Earth Alliance. Thank you for your invitation, High Commander." Zex Toll's large eyes blinked slowly. "We are always eager to meet new spacefaring species. Please follow me to the diplomatic chambers." The human delegation followed the Caldorians through wide corridors, bustling with alien activity. Ryan noticed how many wore military uniforms, how the station seemed built for war rather than peace. The diplomatic chamber was a large room with a curved table and a spectacular view of Caldor Prime below. Other aliens were already seated. Representatives from various parts of the Caldorian government, Ryan assumed. After formal introductions, the discussions began. The Caldorians asked many questions about Earth, human technology, and especially military capabilities. "So your species controls just one star system?" asked a Caldorian with elaborate face markings. "We have established colonies in 2 nearby systems," Patricia replied. "Proxima Centauri and Tau Ceti. With such limited space presence, your defense force must be modest," said another Caldorian. Daniel Carter spoke up. "The Earth Alliance maintains a fleet appropriate to our current needs. We focused on quality and technology rather than numbers." This statement caused several Caldorians to exchange looks that Ryan didn't like. "Perhaps you would share the exact size of your combat fleet?" Zex Tool asked. Patricia hesitated only briefly. Lying would be discovered quickly. The Earth Alliance currently maintains 47 combat-capable vessels. A sound like quiet laughter rippled through the Caldorian delegates. 47? Zextol repeated. His tone was polite, but Ryan could hear the mockery beneath it. That is interesting. The smallest provincial defense force in our dominion maintains at least 500 vessels. Our ships are highly advanced, Patricia said firmly. I'm sure they are for your development stage, Zextol replied. The Caldorian Dominion spans 312 star systems. Our central fleet alone consists of over 6,000 warships. The meeting continued, but the tone had shifted. The Caldorians were still polite, but their questions became more condescending. They spoke about helping humanity develop, about guiding their younger species. They offered technology exchanges that seemed generous on the surface but would give the Caldorians access to Earth systems. At the formal reception that followed, Ryan watched Patricia endure comment after comment about Earth's charming little fleet. The Caldorians didn't even try to hide their amusement anymore. Such a tiny fleet, Zextol said loudly to a group of his officers. It's almost charming how they believe they belong at the table of spacefaring species. Ryan saw Patricia's jaw tighten, but she maintained her diplomatic smile. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their shuttle, Zextol approached Patricia one last time. Admiral Wells, I hope this meeting marks the beginning of a productive relationship between our peoples. The galaxy can be dangerous for small emerging species. The Caldorian Dominion could offer protection. That's very generous, Patricia replied evenly. But humanity has survived many challenges. We're quite capable of protecting ourselves. Zextol's forearms moved in what might have been a gesture of amusement. Of course, I'm sure your 47 ships are very impressive. On the shuttle, ride back to the Relentless, no one spoke until they were well away from the station. They think we're helpless, Daniel finally said. Patricia looked out at the vast Caldorian fleet surrounding them. Then they don't know humans very well. Ryan noticed something in the Admiral's eyes that hadn't been there before. A quiet anger, but also determination. What now, Admiral? He asked. Now, Captain Bennett, we prepare. Patricia turned from the window. Throughout human history, underestimating your opponent has been a fatal mistake. If the Caldorians want to laugh at our fleet size, let them laugh. You think they're a threat? Daniel asked. I think they see us as weak, Patricia replied. And in my experience, those who seek out weakness rarely have good intentions. The Relentless pulled away from Caldor Prime, a tiny speck against the backdrop of the massive Caldorian fleet. Unknown to the aliens watching them leave, Patricia was already composing a priority message to Earth Command. The Caldorians had revealed more than they realized during the meeting, and Patricia Wells had fought enough battles to recognize the signs of an empire looking for easy conquest. She just hoped Earth would have time to prepare before the Caldorians decided to test just how tiny humanity's fleet really was. 6 months had passed since the first meeting with the Caldorians. Life on the Proxima Centauri colony continued mostly as normal, but Commander Olivia Martinez could not shake her growing worry. She stood in the colony's control center, watching the large display that showed nearby space. 3 red dots moved slowly just beyond the colony's defensive boundary. Caldorian warships, said her second-in-command, Lieutenant Paul Wright. That makes 5 accidental border crossings this week. Olivia nodded. And it's only Wednesday. Proxima Centauri was humanity's first colony beyond the solar system. Nearly 15,000 people lived here now in the underground habitats and research centers. They had come to study the planet's unique life forms and mine its rich mineral deposits. Now they found themselves on what felt increasingly like a front line. Olivia tapped her communication panel. Proxima control to Caldorian. Vessels, you are approaching restricted space. Please adjust your course, the response came quickly. Proxima control, this is Captain Drez of the Caldorian Dominion. We are conducting standard military exercises. Your restricted space is not recognized under Dominion protocols. Olivia clenched her jaw. Always the same answer. She sent another message to Earth Command, her 5th this week, detailing the latest incident. The large screen beeped as one of the Caldorian ships moved closer to the boundary. "Should we power up the defense grid?" Paul asked. Olivia hesitated. The colony's defenses were minimal, designed to protect against asteroids and space debris, not warships. If the Caldorians decided to attack, they wouldn't last long. "Not yet," she said finally. "Let's not give them any excuse." On Earth, Ambassador Daniel Carter sat across from the Caldorian representative in a meeting room at the United Nations building in New York. Outside the windows, the city's skyline gleamed in the afternoon sun. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. "Ambassador Laxvos, this is the 8th formal complaint I've delivered regarding your military vessels near Proxima Centauri," Daniel said, sliding a tablet across the table. "Your ships are deliberately violating our territorial boundaries." The Caldorian ambassador, smaller than Zextol but with the same blue skin and 4 arms, made a dismissive gesture. "The Dominion does not recognize your claimed boundaries. They exceed standard territorial allocations for developing species." Daniel leaned forward. "Those boundaries were established in accordance with Earth Alliance law. Your borders are only as valid as your ability to defend them," Laxvos replied coldly. "Perhaps if you had more than a handful of ships." Daniel took a deep breath. "The Earth Alliance views these continued violations as provocative acts. We request that Caldorian vessels maintain a distance of at least 1 million kilometers from all human settlements and outposts. I will convey your request to the High Command," Laxvos said, rising from his chair. "But I recommend you consider accepting our offer of protection. The galaxy contains many dangers for isolated colonies with minimal defenses." After the Caldorian left, Daniel sat alone for several minutes. The implied threat was clear. He opened his secure line to President Alicia Morgan's office. "Madam President, the diplomatic approach isn't working," he said when her face appeared on the screen. "They're testing us, seeing how far they can push before we push back." Admiral Wells reported the same conclusion after reviewing the Proxima situation, the President replied, her expression grim. "We're accelerating certain preparations, but we need more time." "I'm not sure time is something we have," Daniel said. Near the edge of human space, Lieutenant Eric Johnson piloted his small patrol craft along a standard route. His ship, the Swift, was one of the newer vessels in Earth's fleet designed for long-range scouting and surveillance. Eric enjoyed these solo missions. The quiet of deep space gave him time to think. Today, his patrol took him near the Pulsar research station, where a team of scientists were studying the unique radiation patterns of a nearby dying star. The Horizon, an unarmed research vessel, orbited the Pulsar at a safe distance, collecting data that might help develop better navigation systems. Eric was about to check in with the Horizon when his sensors pinged. 3 large vessels had just appeared from FTL travel, less than 50,000 kilometers away. "Caldorian battle cruisers," he muttered, recognizing their distinctive shape. His training kicked in. Eric adjusted his course to maintain distance and activated his ship's passive scanning systems. The Swift was too small to register on most military sensors from this range. The Caldorian ships moved directly toward the research station. Eric opened a secure channel. "Horizon, this is Patrol Craft Swift. You have 3 Caldorian warships approaching your position. Recommend immediate withdrawal to safe distance." The response was immediate. "Swift, this is Dr. Richard Foster. We see them. They're hailing us now, demanding we shut down our..." The transmission cut off. On his screen, Eric watched in horror as bright energy beams lanced out from the lead Caldorian ship. They struck the Horizon with precision. The research vessel didn't even have time to activate emergency measures. It simply came apart, pieces of it scattering into the void. 23 scientists and crew, gone in seconds. Eric's hands shook as he worked the Swift's controls. He activated all recording systems, capturing every detail of the attack. Then he plotted an emergency jump course back to Earth. The Caldorians had already turned their ships, scanning the area. They were looking for witnesses. The Swift was designed to be stealthy, but it couldn't hide from a focused search by 3 warships. Eric had only minutes before they would detect him. He sent one final encrypted burst transmission toward Earth with the attack data then engaged the emergency jump drive. The stars blurred around him as the Swift tore through space, running for home with evidence of an active war. 2 days later, in the Earth Alliance headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Morgan stood with her military advisors, watching the recording of the Horizon's destruction for the 3rd time. "They claim it was a targeting error," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "An unfortunate incident during weapons testing." Admiral Wells shook her head. "There's nothing accidental about those beam trajectories. They knew exactly what they were doing." "Can we prove it?" asked General Nathan Ellis, commander of Earth's ground forces. "Not in a way that would satisfy the Kaldorian legal system," Daniel Carter replied. "Their ambassador has already delivered formal condolences along with a small reparation payment. In their view, the matter is closed." "And if we don't accept that view?" the president asked. Admiral Wells straightened. "Then we're looking at conflict with an empire that controls hundreds of star systems and thousands of warships. An empire that just demonstrated they're willing to kill our people." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the gravity of the situation. Humanity's small fleet against the vast Kaldorian dominion seemed like an impossible matchup. President Morgan walked to the window that looked out into the massive underground chamber. Below, hundreds of personnel worked at various stations, monitoring Earth's defenses. "They think they can push us because we appear weak," she said. "They believe our fleet is too small to respond." She turned back to face her advisors. "I think it's time we showed them how wrong they are. Admiral Wells, is the Spectre program ready?" Patricia Wells allowed herself a small smile. "Yes, madam." "President, we can activate immediately." "Then do it," President Morgan ordered. "The Kaldorians want to see what humans are capable of when provoked. Let's show them." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, Dr. Samantha Powell walked through a massive underground facility that officially did not exist. Her footsteps echoed in the wide corridor as she made her way to the command center. Workers and scientists nodded respectfully as she passed. Everyone here knew who she was, the brilliant physicist who had developed much of the technology that made the Spectre program possible. The doors to the command center slid open, revealing a bustling room filled with screens and control stations. In the center stood Admiral Patricia Wells, who had arrived from Earth just hours ago. "Dr. Powell," Patricia said, extending her hand. "It's good to see you again. How soon can we be ready?" Samantha shook the Admiral's hand. "Most systems were already at preliminary activation. We can have the first wave deployed in 36 hours. Patricia nodded. "Good. The President wants a demonstration of capabilities ready within 3 days." Together, they walked to the main display, which showed a 3-dimensional map of human and Kaldorian space. Red markers indicated known Kaldorian military positions. "They still have no idea what's coming, do they?" Samantha asked quietly. "No," Patricia replied. "All our intelligence suggests they believe we're desperately trying to find a diplomatic solution. Their ambassador continues to be condescending, offering protection while their ships push further into our territory." Samantha looked at the map again. "They saw our conventional fleet and assumed that was everything we had. A classic mistake. For the past 20 years, while humanity publicly built a small fleet of regular warships, a much larger portion of Earth's military budget had gone into the Spectre program, a secret initiative to develop unconventional warfare technologies. The program had been created after Earth's devastating Third World War, when military leaders realized that traditional approaches to space defense would leave humans vulnerable to more advanced alien civilizations. Now, in hidden facilities across the solar system, humanity's real fleet waited. In the rings of Saturn, behind thick clouds of ice and dust, Fleet Admiral Christopher Dawson stood on the bridge of the Shadow, the first of humanity's stealth destroyers. Unlike traditional warships with their bright running lights and powerful engines, the Shadow was designed to be invisible to most detection systems. Its hull absorbed sensor scans rather than reflecting them. "Status report," Christopher said, addressing the bridge crew. "All systems green, Admiral," replied his second-in-command, Captain Lisa Rodriguez. "The other ships report ready as well." Christopher nodded. Around them, hidden in Saturn's rings, were 25 identical vessels, the first wave of humanity's hidden fleet. None of these ships had ever been seen by the Kaldorians or registered in any public database. "Deployment orders have arrived," Lisa said, reading from her screen. "We're to move to staging positions within the next 24 hours. Christopher studied the tactical display. Soon, the Kaldorians would learn that humans had been preparing for this kind of confrontation for decades. "Send acknowledgement to command," he ordered. "Tell them the Shadow Fleet is ready." On Earth, in an underground facility beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Kevin Rodriguez made final adjustments to a complex machine that filled most of the large chamber. Technicians moved carefully around the sensitive equipment, running last-minute checks. "Power levels stable," called out one of the engineers. "Spatial displacement field is forming correctly." Kevin nodded, not looking up from his work. The device he had spent 15 years developing was deceptively simple in concept, but incredibly complex in execution. It allowed ships equipped with special receivers to perform near-instantaneous jumps through space without using the standard navigation routes that the Kaldorians monitored. "Dr. Rodriguez," said a voice behind him. "Is it ready?" Kevin turned to see President Alicia Morgan standing at the entrance to the chamber, flanked by security personnel. He straightened up immediately. "Madam President, yes, the system is operational. We've successfully tested it at short ranges. The full-scale implementation is ready." President Morgan walked closer, looking at the massive device. "Explain it to me again. How will this give us an advantage?" Kevin pointed to a holographic display showing the known galaxy. "The Kaldorians control all major jump points between star systems. Their entire defensive strategy relies on knowing exactly where an enemy fleet can appear. This system lets our ships bypass those restrictions completely." "So we can appear anywhere, without warning?" the president asked. "Within certain parameters, yes," Kevin replied. "We can position our ships directly in Kaldorian space, completely bypassing their outer defenses." The president nodded slowly. "And they have no idea this technology exists?" "None at all," Kevin confirmed. "We've been extremely careful to hide all research and testing." "Good work, Doctor," President Morgan said. "Begin final preparations. You'll receive the activation codes when it's time." In orbit around Jupiter, Colonel Grace Wilson supervised the loading of quantum disruption torpedoes onto a fleet of small, automated drone ships. Each torpedo was the size of a car but contained no conventional explosives. Instead, they carried technology designed specifically to disable Kaldorian shields and weapons without destroying the ships themselves. "Last batch loaded," reported Sergeant John Davis as the final torpedoes were secured. "Excellent," Grace replied. "Begin pre-launch sequences. We deploy in 18 hours." The drone swarm was another key element of humanity's hidden defense strategy. Traditional space battles relied on large ships with powerful weapons. The Kaldorians excelled at this type of warfare. Humans had decided to take a different approach, using thousands of small, expendable drones that could overwhelm enemy targeting. Systems Grace had helped design this strategy after studying Earth's military history. "The powerful don't expect the weak to change the rules of engagement," she had told her superiors years ago. The Spectre program was built on that principle. 3 days after the destruction of the research vessel Horizon, High Commander Zex Tool sat in his private chambers on Caldor Prime, reviewing reports from his ships near human space. The primitive humans were reacting exactly as expected, with diplomatic protests and no meaningful military response. A chime indicated an incoming communication. Zextol touched a panel and the face of Fleet Captain Vex Gorin appeared. "High Commander, I'm pleased to report that our advance force has moved 10 light minutes beyond the human colony at Proxima Centauri. We've encountered no resistance." Zextol nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Continue the operation as planned. What is the status of the human fleet?" "Most of their ships remain in their home system," Vex Gorin replied. "They've sent 2 additional patrol vessels to their colony, but nothing that could threaten our forces." "They know they are outmatched," Zextol said with satisfaction. "Soon they will accept our protection agreement on our terms." The mineral resources of their worlds will make a fine addition to the Dominion. There is one unusual development, Vex Goran added. Several of our sensor stations along the border have reported brief power fluctuations. A technical malfunction, nothing more, Zextol dismissed the concern. The humans lack the capability to interfere with our technology. After the communication ended, Zextol returned to planning the next phase of the Dominion's expansion. The humans would soon understand their place in the galactic hierarchy. Their tiny fleet would not save them. What the High Commander didn't know was that at that very moment hundreds of human vessels were moving silently into position, ready to show the Kaldorians just how wrong they were about humanity's capabilities. Nyo. The control center on Mars, Dr. Samantha Powell looked up at Admiral Wells. All systems are go. The first wave is in position. Patricia nodded and opened a secure channel to Earth. Madam President, we're ready to proceed. President Morgan's voice came through clearly. You have authorization, Admiral. Show them what humans can do when pushed too far. Patricia turned to the command staff. Send the activation code. Operation Thunderbolt begins now. On the bridge of the Kaldorian defense station orbiting their homeworld, Sub-Commander Trezvon frowned at his control panel. Something strange was happening with their long-range sensors. One by one, monitoring stations along the border with human space were going silent. Status report, he ordered, looking up at his technical officer. Unknown, sir, the officer replied. We've lost contact with 12 monitoring posts in the last hour. Diagnostic systems show no malfunctions before communications ended. Trezvon tapped his communicator. Alert High Command. Request permission to send scout ships to investigate. Before a response came, the main sensor array began beeping urgently. The technical officer's forehands moved rapidly over the controls. Sir, multiple unknown vessels detected. They're everywhere. Impossible, Trezvon said, moving to the main display. Where did they come from? How many? At least 30 ships detected near the homeworld, the officer said, his voice shaking. They appeared out of nowhere. No jump point activations registered. Raise all shields. Alert the defense fleet, Trezvon ordered. But even as he spoke, more alarms sounded throughout the station. Commander Kelly Sanderson sat calmly in the captain's chair of the human stealth destroyer Phantom. Her ship, along with 5 others, had just materialized in high orbit over Kaldor Prime, the heart of the alien empire. The Rodriguez spatial displacement technology had worked perfectly, allowing them to bypass all of the Kaldorians' outer defenses. All ships report successful insertion, said her tactical officer, Lieutenant Alan Price. The Kaldorians are only now detecting our presence. Weapon status? Kelly asked. EMP packages ready for deployment. Targeting systems locked on their command and control nodes. Kelly nodded. Deploy as planned. Remember, minimal casualties. We're here to disable, not destroy. Across her view screen, Kelly watched as small, missile-like objects launched from her ship and the others in her squadron. These weren't conventional weapons, but sophisticated electronic warfare packages designed to overwhelm and shut down Kaldorian systems without causing physical destruction. Packages away, Allen reported. Impact in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The lights on the Kaldorian station flickered, then dimmed. Around it, the massive warships that protected the homeworld began drifting out of formation as their propulsion systems failed. First phase successful, Kelly reported back to Earth Command. Moving to Phase 2. Across Kaldorian space, the same scene played out as human ships appeared simultaneously at key military locations. The Kaldorians' carefully organized defense network crumbled in confusion as enemies appeared inside their territory, rather than at the expected jump points. Admiral Jason Howard coordinated the attacks from his command ship near the Kaldorian naval base in the Zeta Reticuli system. His screen showed dozens of green dots representing human vessels, systematically disabling Kaldorian ships and installations. Beta Group reports success at the shipyards, his communications officer reported. All construction facilities disabled. Delta Group has secured the command hub in the Orion sector. added another officer. Minimal resistance encountered. Jason allowed himself a small smile. The Caldorians had built their entire defense strategy around controlling access points between star systems. They never imagined an enemy could simply appear in their territory without using those routes. Drone swarms deployed and functioning. At 98% efficiency, said his tactical officer. Caldorian point defense systems are overwhelmed. The thousands of small automated drones that Colonel Grace Wilson had prepared were now flying through Caldorian space, targeting weapons and propulsion systems with surgical precision. Too small to track effectively and too numerous to shoot. Down they slipped past the aliens' defenses and delivered their specialized payloads. Send the message, Jason ordered. All frequencies, all Caldorian languages. The communications officer nodded, then transmitted the prepared statement. We don't need 1,000 ships. We just need the right ones in the right places. On Caldor, Prime, High Commander Zextol rushed into the emergency command bunker deep beneath the surface. Around him, his senior staff worked frantically to understand what was happening. How is this possible, he demanded. Where did these human ships come from? Unknown, High Commander, replied his chief strategist. They did not use any known jump points. They simply appeared. What of our fleet? Zextol asked. Most vessels report complete systems failure. Weapons, propulsion, and communications are offline. The ships themselves are intact, but useless. Zextol could not believe what he was hearing. Just days ago, he had dismissed the humans as a minor annoyance with their tiny fleet. Now, somehow, they had paralyzed the mighty Caldorian Dominion. Get me any functioning ship, he ordered. We must launch a counterattack. Sir, we can't, his communications officer said. All fleet command systems are compromised. Our remaining ships cannot coordinate their actions. For the first time in his long military career, Zextol felt true fear. The humans had changed the rules of war in ways he couldn't comprehend. Back on the Phantom, Commander Kelly Sanderson received new orders from Earth Command. Her ship moved into position above the Caldorian Central Government Complex. There, she deployed specialized communication jammers that isolated the Caldorian leadership from their military forces. Final phase complete, she reported. The Caldorian command structure is now completely separated from their forces. They cannot coordinate a response. Excellent work, Commander, came Admiral Wells' voice over the secure channel. Maintain position. Ambassador Carter is en route to begin negotiations. Across Caldorian space, the carefully executed operation continued. Human ships, far more, numerous than the Caldorians had believed possible, systematically disabled the alien empire's military capabilities. Not through destruction, but through precision technological attacks that left the Caldorians unharmed, yet unable to fight. The drone swarms proved particularly effective. The small machines slipped through even the tightest defenses, attaching themselves to key systems on Caldorian ships. Once in place, they released quantum disruption fields that rendered weapons and shields inoperable without damaging the vessels themselves. Admiral Jason Howard watched the operation unfold with satisfaction. The Caldorians had made a fundamental mistake in their assessment of humanity. They had seen Earth's conventional fleet, the 47 ships that humans had allowed them to see, and assumed that was the extent of their military power. They never questioned why a species with humanity's industrial capacity and war-filled history would maintain such a limited defense force. They never considered that humans might be hiding their true capabilities. 70 hours after Operation Thunderbolt began, Admiral Wells received the report she had been waiting for. Every major Caldorian military installation had been neutralized. Their fleet, thousands of advanced warships, floated helplessly in space, their crews unharmed but unable to fight. Send word to the President, Patricia instructed her communications officer. The military phase is complete. The Caldorians are ready for diplomacy. In his bunker on Caldor Prime, High Commander Zextol received the message from Earth. It was simple and direct. The Earth Alliance requests an immediate ceasefire and negotiations for a permanent peace. Your answer is expected within 1 hour. Zextol looked at his advisors. There was no choice. In just 3 days, humans had accomplished what no species had managed in the 1,000-year history of the Kaldorian Dominion. They had rendered the entire Kaldorian military ineffective without firing a single destructive shot. "Send our acceptance," he said quietly. "Tell them we are ready to negotiate." As the message was sent, Zexatul reflected bitterly on his earlier mockery of humanity's tiny fleet. He had made the worst mistake possible in warfare, underestimating his opponent. The humans, it seemed, had been several steps ahead all along. 3 days after the human strike against the Kaldorian Dominion, representatives from both species gathered in the grand meeting hall of the Kaldorian Central Government Building. The room was silent, except for the soft sound of breathing as Ambassador Daniel Carter stood before the assembled aliens. High Commander Zextul sat at the center of the Kaldorian delegation. His once proud posture was now stiff with tension. Around him sat the highest-ranking members of the Dominion's government and military, all of them still struggling to understand how quickly their empire had been brought to its knees. The Earth. Alliance did not want this conflict, Daniel began, his voice calm but firm. We sought peaceful relations from our first meeting. Yet you mistook our restraint for weakness. You believed our fleet was small because we lacked the capability to build more. Zextul shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The human was right, and everyone in the room knew it. We could have responded to your aggression with destruction, Daniel continued. Instead, we chose to demonstrate that the size of a fleet matters, far less than how it's employed. Behind Daniel stood Admiral Patricia Wells, Commander Kelly Sanderson, and several other human military leaders. They had removed the stealth technology from their ships, allowing the Kaldorians to finally see the true extent of humanity's space force. The terms of our proposed treaty are simple, Daniel said, gesturing to the document displayed on the large screen behind him. First, the Kaldorian Dominion will respect all human territorial claims and borders. Second, both our species will establish joint defense and technology exchange programs. Third, reparations will be paid to the families of those lost on the U research vessel Horizon. The Kaldorian Prime Minister, a female named Vexlar, who outranked even Zextul in the civilian government, leaned forward. And if we refuse these terms? Daniel looked at her steadily. We have demonstrated our capabilities. We would prefer not to demonstrate them again. The implied threat hung in the air. Everyone present knew that the humans could have destroyed the Kaldorian fleet rather than simply disabling it. That they chose not to was perhaps the most frightening aspect of the whole situation. Zextul finally spoke, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. I wish to understand something, Ambassador. How did your ships appear throughout our territory without using jump points? Such technology should be impossible. Admiral Wells stepped forward. High Commander, with respect, I believe the more important question is why you assumed you knew the limits of our capabilities. After a brief silence, Vexlar nodded. The terms are acceptable. We will sign your treaty. As the formal ceremony proceeded, the tension in the room gradually eased. By the time the documents were signed, there was a sense of cautious hope that perhaps this conflict might lead to a more respectful relationship between humans and Kaldorians. Later, in a smaller meeting room, Dr. Samantha Powell sat across from a group of Kaldorian scientists. They had requested this meeting to better understand the technology that had so thoroughly defeated their defenses. Your stealth ships, began one of the Kaldorians, a senior physicist named Drenvor. How did you develop such effective cloaking technology? Samantha smiled slightly. After our first meeting with your people, we realized that conventional warfare would not be effective against your numerical advantage. So we focused on asymmetric approaches, technology that would allow us to fight on our terms, not yours. And the spatial displacement system? Asked another scientist. It violates several laws of physics as we understand them. Perhaps your understanding is incomplete, Samantha suggested gently. The lesson isn't that humans are inherently superior, but that assumption is the enemy of understanding. You saw our conventional fleet and assumed that was the extent of our capability. You never asked why a species with our history of warfare would expose all its assets. The Kaldorian scientists exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with how thoroughly they had underestimated humans. Drenvor nodded slowly. And now the other powers in the galaxy will look at us and wonder what else the humans might be concealing. Precisely, Samantha replied. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is the possibility of what might exist rather than what actually does. On the other side of the government complex, High Commander Zextol met privately with Admiral Wells. The two military leaders stood by a large window overlooking the Kaldorian capital city, its tall spires gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. I made a grave error in judgment, Zextol admitted. I mistook restraint for weakness and caution for fear, a mistake our military history should have warned against. Patricia nodded. Throughout human history, underestimating an opponent has often led to defeat. We hoped you would recognize our peaceful intentions without needing this demonstration. Your response was measured, Zextol said. You could have destroyed our ships rather than disabling them. You showed remarkable restraint. The goal was never destruction, Patricia replied, only to ensure mutual respect. Zextol turned to face her directly. Tell me honestly, Admiral, how much of your capability did you reveal in this operation? Do humans have even more powerful technologies hidden away? Patricia smiled slightly but did not answer. The uncertainty, she knew, would serve as a better deterrent than any weapon. 2 weeks later, the Earth Alliance ship Relentless departed from Kaldor Prime. Captain Ryan Bennett stood on the bridge, watching the planet shrink in the distance. Beside him, Admiral Wells reviewed reports on a datapad. The Kaldorians have already begun implementing the treaty terms, Patricia noted. Their ships have withdrawn from the Proxima Centauri border, and the first reparation payments have been processed. Ryan nodded. Do you think they'll honor the agreement long term? I believe they will, Patricia replied. Nothing encourages peaceful behavior quite like the memory of how quickly their military advantage was neutralized. As the Relentless prepared to jump back to Earth, Ryan thought about how much had changed since their first visit to Kaldor Prime. Then, they had been mocked for their tiny fleet. Now they departed as equals, perhaps even as the dominant partner in the relationship. Admiral, he said, do you think other alien species will take note of what happened here? Patricia smiled. Without question. The news is already spreading throughout nearby systems. The story of how humans defeated the mighty Kaldorian Dominion will grow with each telling. And if others decide to test us? Ryan asked. Then they will learn the same lesson, Patricia said firmly. Judge us by our actions, not our appearances. Humanity may be new to the galactic stage, but we bring thousands of years of warfare experience with us. The Relentless engaged its engines, leaving Kaldorian space behind. Word of what had happened here would indeed spread quickly throughout the galaxy, carried by traders and diplomats to distant worlds. The story would be told and retold, growing, more impressive with each version. In the decades that followed, humanity expanded cautiously into nearby star systems, establishing colonies and trading posts. They encountered other alien civilizations, some friendly and some hostile. But wherever humans went, one fact always preceded them. This was a species with a small fleet that should never, ever be underestimated.